So I'm doing something a little different. My friends are all pretty curious about astrology, and I happen to know some things. So I'm like, you know what? I will make some videos on astrology. Since we're in a season of no retrogrades until April 21st, I figured this is a perfect time to bring it up, right? So I wanted to start out my astrological kind of an like explanation. Like I wanted to start with the retrogrades, right? To me, planets in retrograde are like the same as like a tarot reversal. And those of you who are watching this have most likely watched me do tarot readings. So yeah, so you would know what the reversals are. So every planet is a Roman god, right? And that's one thing I loved about the Romans is they recognized them as sentient beings, right? And I actually strongly feel the same way. And so these were the sky gods, right? And they all determined different things, and they noticed during different astrological events and things that people would behave in accordance to like the planets, right? And the energy of the planets. And this is how they came to like the knowledge of such. So that, and they were like really close to the Egyptians. So I'm sure they learned some stuff, right? But yeah, retrogrades are basically when a planet is moving at a certain speed in relation to Earth, right? Earth is typically moving a bit slower. And so it makes them appear to be moving backwards, right? They're not actually moving backwards, it's just an illusion, right? And that's kind of first things first about retrograde. Retrograde is about illusion, right? Typically we get disillusioned when retrograde ends, and then we're like, oh shit, I was tripping. So that's, yeah. I'm sure we've all are pretty familiar with Mercury retrograde. Mercury is probably actually one of the most popular gods without even realizing it, right? Like, people, I don't think that they realize how much they actually credit him, right? Or, in a sense, it's almost like the absence of him, right? Because we are feeling like a pull or like a separation from Mercury, and that's what creates this like retrograde energy, even though we're not really separating. Like, the planets don't go backwards, right? It's an illusion from the point of view of Earth, right? Which is where we live. Unfortunately. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so Mercury. Let's talk about Mercury, right? He's the god of merchants. So typically he's in charge of like business matters, partnerships. He deals with communication, right? These kinds of things. Mercury retrogrades disrupt communication and have a lot of people have a lot of misunderstandings during this time. I have my notes, so that's why I'm looking down. Just saying. People that you don't talk to anymore will typically pop up during Mercury retrograde and try to communicate, try to rekindle something. It's because communication is going backwards a little bit. And this is also one of the reasons why you're advised during Mercury retrograde. One, don't start a new job. Don't get into a new relationship. Don't sign contracts, right? These are all like warnings, because when Mercury isn't there to like bless us getting into these unions or these jobs or these things, it's like trying to enter into a thing without Mercury's blessing. Is kind of, it creates chaos. Mercury shows up after retrograde and is like, wait, gangsta, did I say that you can talk to this motherfucker again? Or did I say you can get that job? Or, and so then shit ends up corrected, right? And then when it's corrected, people are upset. They just had another bad experience with their ex, they just had a shitty job, or they were, they went through hell, and it's because they didn't take Mercury's advice, right? And Mercury doesn't speak to us through words. Mercury speaks to us through energy, right? As do all the planets. And that's something that the Romans were deeply connected with. They were also deeply connected with so much like like astrophysics, like the origins of astrophysics. You know, they were connected to the roots of like these scientific matters regarding like the skies, right? I wouldn't say that they're the first, and I wouldn't say that they're the best at it, but I would say that they fucking knew a thing or two, right? And so every planet is a deity, right? And that's something, if you're going to get into astrology, I feel like we need to recognize that. Okay? And I know, like, a lot of people are like, well, then click off. You know, and because this is for people who want to take astrology seriously, you know, and recognize it for what it is. Anybody who lives on planet Earth and actually connects to Earth can feel very much that she's alive, right? Very much that she feels when the earth is in peril, and she'll clean her if people start acting parasitic, natural disasters start striking, shit starts going right, because she's like, no, okay, like, this is my motherfucking garden, you're just a plant, right, as far as the earth is concerned. And you gotta stay in alignment with like the cycle, even if you didn't originate here, right? And it's like you have to find your homeostasis here. I'll get back to that. Sorry, I go on tangents. Then, yes, let's talk about Venus retrogrades, right? Venus, as most people know, is Aphrodite, right? The Greek goddess. I like her name Venus a lot. I think it's dope. Call her whatever you want. Same motherfucker, right? As with a lot of gods from different, like, worlds, they had different, or not worlds, different countries and different regions or whatever, you know, they had different languages, so they had different names for the same motherfuckers, you know, and I think that's something, like, if you look at Thoth the Atlantean, Hermes in Greece, Ibis in Central America, they all are the same fucking dude, the same. He's depicted exactly the same, from the same time frames or similar time frames, you know. So yeah, like, yeah, let's get into the flow of talking about this normally. Okay, I hate when people call it mythology, because it really is just theology, right? The study of gods and goddesses is theology. Calling it mythology is insulting, okay, to those of us who love those motherfuckers, okay. But yeah, so Venus retrogrades, when Venus is not there to bless your relationships or to bless your physical appearance, right? Because she's the goddess of beauty as well, and glamour and love, and, you know, and so this is when your love life gets tested, right? And this is when things are out of alignment, you know, fade away. Also, this is that time of year where you're like sitting there and you're like, I think I'm just gonna like chop off all my bangs, and I think I'm gonna go, you know, shave my head maybe. Maybe I'll get a face tattoo. I'll do right? This is a time where you want to make a permanent change to your appearance, or at least a very long-term change to your appearance. And this is the wrong time to do it, right? If Venus is in retrograde, she ain't there to bless the actions you're doing. Sorry, I've got people living here. But yeah, so you might hear things. But, yeah, so whatever you decide to do without the blessing of Aphrodite, right, in regards to your looks or your love life, those will become things that you regret, right? This is why, like, the ancients really understood needing blessings from the god, right? The gods, you know, really understanding during the time that these planets are going direct, right? We realize, okay, this is free flow. This is like, okay, this is your green light, right? When these planets are, you know, are in retrograde and they appear to, you know, this is where the illusion pops up, and this is where we need to be like, you know, because your confidence will be affected, or, you know, you might go through a relationship situation and be like, now I gotta cut my hair and change everything about me, change my entire identity. That's the worst time to do it. Okay, don't do it. So yes, Mars, the god of war and the guardian of agriculture, right? So Mars retrograde, And I will go into another video just talking about the different planets and the gods and, you know, their stories and all that. But this one is specific to retrogrades. I'm trying to categorize things, which is weird. I'm an Aquarius. I don't do that. But I'm doing it. Basically, Mars retrogrades disrupt our energy and our physicality, right? You're going to feel tired, lazy, unmotivated. This is like the best time for meditation, snacks, self-care, introspection, just chilling, right? You don't want to be doing too much, right? If you end up in like conflicts during this time, or say you try to plant anything at this time, you're probably, you know, you done did it without Mars blessing, right? And so therefore, you know, according to all this, like, you know, don't expect to get a harvest out of that. Your seeds are gonna go bad. You're gonna get root rot, right? If you end up in conflict, you're gonna be the one losing, even if you were in the right? This is like a terrible time to go to court, brother. And this is a terrible time to like try to do anything, right? Hold on, I need some water. So yeah, this is a time where you really want to veg out and go into hermit mode. Mars retrograde is hermit season, you know, and I mean not literally like Virgo season, but like that's the time where you just want to chill. Put on the fucking Netflix, read a damn book. Don't talk to people, okay? Not anything past what is necessary, right? People you live with, people you work with, that's one thing. Don't talk to the others, okay? So let's see. Jupiter, aka Jove. Also arguably probably Thor, right? He's the god of the sky and thunder, right? So he's the one that brings like prosperity, philosophy, exploration, right? This is the god that blesses all these endeavors. So when Jupiter is in retrograde, when this god is moving away from us, right? And not literally, but the illusion of him, right? Because he's not ever really moving away from us, right? He's not going backwards, but it looks like he's, I've explained it too many times. Whatever. But during this time, you're going to, like, when Jupiter is in retrograde, you're going to feel unlucky, right? You're going to feel unappreciated. You're going to feel like you put in all this hard work, all these efforts, you have all this faith, you do all these things, and this is a time where Jupiter's testing your character, right? This is a time where it's like, oh, you say you're ethical, you say these are your morals, your values, you say you have conviction about that. Well, how hard are you going to work towards all of that if you're not getting shit in return for it, right? How much are you going to put into this? How much does it matter to you, right? And it's like a test, because eventually we all know Jupiter goes direct and shit turns around, right? That's the illusion, right? But it's the test of your convictions. How much do you mean what you say, especially in regards to who you are, right? Then, let's see. We have Saturn. Obviously the oldest motherfucker out of the bunch, right? So, Saturn is the god of generations, time, and disillusionment, abundance, wealth, agriculture, renewal, and liberation. He's actually a god of a lot of things, okay? Saturn, I mean, think about all the moons Saturn has, right? That's warriors, right? That's like, you know, how much moons a planet has, that's like their fucking infantry, right? They're right there on the front lines, like, oh, I got your back, dog. And you have to understand, like, we're standing too close to the elephant to really see it without observing it constantly, right? The Romans were constantly observing the stars and the sky and trying to understand all this shit, right? And so by watching their behavior, they learned these things. And so, yeah. But anyway, Saturn retrogrades make you feel like you're always late, right? Or like you're always running late, you wake up late, you feel like time is of the essence. You might struggle with time management during this time, your responsibilities, organization, self-discipline, all that shit out the window during this time, right? And this is really to challenge you to think about like what do you actually want, right? It's very similar to Jupiter in that way. It will cause delays and obstacles to test your determination to succeed, right? To be like, all right, so when Jupiter ain't throwing you, I love that Mercury gets all the hate when like literally these two motherfuckers, Saturn and Jupiter, when they walk away, they're like, let's test you, let's really do that, So yeah, yikes. Then we have Uranus, the most powerful of them all. He is known specifically as the ruler of the heavens, right? And they often called him heaven, right? So if we think about how the Romans believed that they were going to heaven, perhaps they were talking about a planet. Which they literally called Uranus heaven. So, I mean, there's a correlation to connect there, right? Its name was heaven. Uranus retrogrades disrupt innovation, introspection, like basically your ability to like creatively like build on shit, right? But basically during Uranus retrograde, you're more likely to stand up to authority. You'll feel more impulsive, a little more ballsy, right? You're gonna feel a lot more self-aware. During this time, you're kind of asked to kind of like really mean what you say, right? Don't say shit you don't mean, because you will be held accountable for what you say, right? And also, right, you take on that Uranus energy. When Uranus is kind of like in retrograde, we think, oh, the big boss is out of town. Now I'm the big boss, and then it's like, yeah, ego central. It's stupid. But yeah, so Uranus, pretty much, challenges are like ego more than anything, which makes a lot of sense. And I kind of love that, like, they're ruler of the heavens, because in the reverse, right, it's all, ego shit. But in the, Uranus, when Uranus is going direct, it's all about, like, being humble, being a strong leader, taking action, feeling driven, it's very opposite of what the retrograde energy is. So right now we have every planet going direct, right? So right now it's kind of like all the planets are like, all right, we done fucked with y'all enough in the last couple of years. Take a break. See you next April. Or don't see you next April, right? That's when they're... But whatever. Then we have Neptune, my boy. He's actually the brother to Jupiter and Pluto. He's the god of the water, right? Obviously. And when we look at Jupiter, we see why you would think that. It's just pure blue, right? The bluest blue you've ever seen. I literally, the first time I saw a picture from the Hubble Space Telescope, whatever, I'm a pothead. I lose words, okay? But when I first saw that image, and it was just like piercing, and now with the new web one, it's even more intense. But like, I remember looking at that and I was like, how the fuck did they get this picture? Like, it is so clear, it's so blue, and I fell in love. I had it as a background in my phone for at least a couple years. But yeah, Neptune retrogrades disrupt your fantasy and your imagination, your creativity. This is when you're gonna feel blockages, right? This is where you're going to feel kind of like, you know when the magic feels like a little bit lost, right? When Neptune walks away a little bit, that's when we feel a little bit like, where'd the magic go? It's like, and that's kind of the energy you're gonna feel when Neptune's in retrograde. Then you're gonna be a lot more like focused on the material shit. You're gonna probably be a little bit more stressed out because you have all these blockages, especially if art is a livelihood for you. Good luck. Yeah, like writers hate it when Neptune walks away, right? Neptune is the muse, right? Neptune is the one that like inspires and motivates. Like, it's like staring at the ocean. Nobody stares at the ocean and doesn't feel that, it's like, yeah. But yeah, so it's nice that Neptune is currently, going direct right now. Is the perfect time for us to be creative and really tap into that Neptune energy, right? And I hope that when you really look at all this, and when when you're going through different like planetary stuff, I hope that you take a time, like a moment to kind of like respect them all for their own individuality, right? Even in space, we've got diversity. Not one motherfucker up there looks identical to another, right? But I'm gonna pause real fast. I'll be right back. All right, and I'm back. Then we have final one, but not the worst one, right? Like, this is one of those that I feel like he gets a bad rap. A lot of people say he's not even a planet, and this pisses me off a little bit because he's a little baby planet. But basically, Pluto is Hades, right? God of the dead, Lord of the underworld, right? So he's actually very fucking powerful, even though he's smaller than the others, right? Like, don't underestimate his might. He is the darkness, right? He is the shadow, right? So, Pluto retrogrades disrupt cycles of renewal, right? Because that's a big thing that Pluto is about. It's like that energy of the fall where things have to, like, the leaves gotta fall, people gotta go inside and everything, It's like during that cycle, like, he creates the groundwork for rebirth, right? For creation. It's like when at the end of harvest, when people will just burn up their land, the whatever's left on their land, and then they replant in the spring, and they do the whole thing. Like Pluto or Hades is that energy, right? That one, he's the god of destruction. He's got to destroy so that the creators can come in and do their shit, right? During Pluto retrogrades, this is when your friendships are gonna break apart. You might switch jobs during this time, break up in a relationship, you might move away. This is when you drop things and people who aren't meant to go on to the next level with you, right? Pluto steps aside because he's kind of he's mischief, right? So he's the one who keeps us bound or connected to people and things that aren't right for us, right? And so when he steps away, that's when we're like, oh shit, I was under this illusion, right? And then when the veil fades, because he stepped back, then we're able to let go and release from like all the deceitful things that show up in our life, or the things that are just not right for us, the things that show up in the wrong energy for us. Pluto's kind of a dope dude. Even though, yes, I know, he's destruction, but he has his purpose, right? Just like a demolition crew has their purpose, right? It doesn't make them any better or worse than the construction workers, right? We've got to have the construction crew, we have to have the demolition crew. That as above, so below. It's like same. It really is like, kind of in every spiritual, like, history, I guess you could say, there's always been a Pluto, right? There's always been a Hades. There's always, we call him all the different things. We call him Set. We call him Satan. We call him Lucifer. We call him, Pan, Hades, Loki, Thoth. Call him what you want, but it's the same dude, and he's just as powerful or just as, important as all the other gods. And that's something that I think a lot of, people who grew up in, organized religion, well, I did too, but people who are kind of in the organized religion thing, they think of that as, devil worship. And no, it's not. It's I have my Kali deck, right? She's technically a demoness, right? But she's also a goddess, right? So she's, the energy of both. And the same is true for Pluto. They serve a divine purpose. They're here for the sake of something. It's important that they exist. We need them to exist, right? As much as it might, not be, that perfect, pretty little utopia everybody fantasizes about, but that's not our reality, right? And even in, and that's why we're told in, Buddhist and Hindu traditions, you gotta find nirvana within, right? Ascension, or the rapture, right? Because ascension is just another word for rapture. Ascension happens within, right? It happens when you shed yourself from your, carnal self, and you're wait, I'm, barely even material, right? I'm barely the skin. The skin is as much me as the clothes I'm wearing. So, it's not really me. It's just a fucking vehicle. I'm energy, right? You're energy. We all energy. And we're just in these little avatars, It's but, and the same is true for people, People carry the energy of the gods within them. And that's one of the reasons, and something I'm going to dive a little deeper into that rabbit hole later. But every zodiac sign is ruled by a different planet, right? And now that we've acknowledged, the planets are gods, now you understand the nature of the people that are ruled under those signs, right? And the whole natal chart thing that goes with it. We're going all the way down this rabbit hole. And so basically, that's how we connect with our deity, right? When we're born under their constellation, that's when our existence was blessed by that god in particular, right? When we're talking in regards to the planets, that planet has blessed our, has blessed our existence by traveling through our constellation during that, particular whatever. Or because we were traveling through our constellation during that, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so and I think it's funny because literally this is something that's been taught since before Christianity, right? This is long before Christianity, actually. And it's just kind of hilarious to me that, a lot of scientists negate this when they talk about gods or celestial bodies, when literally it's written in our history that a lot of the gods or the deities that they talked about were planets, energies, beings that came from, and usually, the gods are, I think the thing that separates the gods and the angels in all the lore, right, is the fact that, or the gods, the angels, the demons, and, whatever. I think the thing that separates them is the gods are the planets, right? And then, the angels, the travelers, the messengers that go planet to planet to planet to send messages, that's the angels, right? And we've also called them aliens, right? And I have no shame in talking about that shit either, because literally we have too much evidence with the Easter Island, all the pyramids, Stonehenge, the Bermuda Triangle. We have way too much physical evidence on our planet right fucking now for me to be fake news. I'm sorry. I can't just look at proof and be that ain't proof. I don't have that kind of cognitive dissonance. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I heavily believe in things outside of here, and I heavily believe that a lot of, I mean, it was thought the Atlantean, he lived between 52,000 BC and 36,000 BC, right? And there's writings of him from country to country, right? From Central America, Greece, Egypt, wherever. That fool was everywhere. And something he said was pretty fucking interesting. He said, and I'm paraphrasing because the quote's not right and directly in front of my face, but he said, one day, like, people will realize that space is not boundless. Space is bounded by curves and angles, right? And he talks about, like traveling through space and all the things that he's experienced, right? And only recently did we find this to be true, right? Because everyone was like, oh, it's infinity, so it goes infinitely in all directions. Well, scientists have actually proven, and I'll show you a little diagram of what our universe actually looks like. It is infinity, but it's like a boob. No, I'm kidding. But like, so it goes around, right? And then it re-loops back on itself infinitely. And it goes back and right? That's the shape of our universe, right? And we see that same shape when we look at black holes and all these other things. But yeah, so only recently have scientists been able to discover that the universe is shaped like a donut, right? It's shaped like a donut, and it just kind of curves back in on itself and comes back, comes back, and it's vast. Yeah, it's hella fucking vast, but it's not boundless, right? And how is some motherfucker who lived 52,000 BC to 36,000 BC gonna tell me something that scientists are just barely now figuring out? Unless one, he's a time traveler, or two, he came from somewhere else, right? And I mean, even like the oldest stories from human history in ancient Sumeria, the Mesopotamians, all that shit, they all talked about similar shit, right? These beings that come down in chariots from the sky, right? Like spaceships, probably. Like, I don't know what humans, like, now that we have all this modern technology, I feel like it's pretty fucking easy to put two and two together and be like, that makes sense, especially given all the fucking evidence from the beginning to now, right? All over Earth, in every layer of strata, we've got proof. And it's fucking hilarious. Every day it's more and more uncovered. And people who choose to deny it, that's like, alright, flat earther, get on with your bad self, But yeah, so that's pretty much my rant for today. Talking about retrogrades during the safest time when no planet's in retrograde. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna do some readings, get a little caught up. Namaste. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.